Everybody, to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I am a dream curator here at DreamBank. On behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here. As we get started, we always like to learn where people are joining us from today and encourage you to do so in the chat function if you are comfortable with that. As I mentioned before we kick things off, in Madison, Wisconsin, a little rainy today, but it's a nice cozy day here. So for those of you who have attended our virtual or our in-person events in the past, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you. And I'd love to take a couple moments and introduce you to DreamBank. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe that communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. And that's why DreamBank was created just over 11 years ago. It's an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's always something for every dreamer, and our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and to stay motivated. But I'm really excited to introduce our speaker today, Ashley Powell. So Ashley is a seasoned veteran on the DreamBank stage today. She will be talking about salary negotiation. So without further ado, I will go ahead and kick it over to Ashley. Ashley, take it away.
Thank you so much, Andy. I am super excited. Let me share my screen. There we go. Here's what I can see, because I found that this is helpful. So I can see I see a Q&A, and so if you have anything for me during the presentation, that's a really good place for it. And there will absolutely be some time for questions at the end. We have about half an hour, and I will do my best to share everything that I possibly can during that half an hour. But as we get started, so my name is Ashley Quinto Powell. I'm a self-advocacy expert and the author of Executive Motherhood, The Art of Having It All Without Doing It All. I'm really, really passionate, especially about equity in the workplace, and that 100% includes being paid fairly. So I'm going to help arm you with what you can do on your side to get paid fairly, and I hope that this serves you well in the next many years of your career. So I'll start by introducing you to my buddies Dick and Jane. Upon graduation, let's imagine that imaginary Dick and Jane both graduate and they apply for jobs, and they both get offers at $50,000. Statistically, Jane will say, "Thanks, I can start in 2 weeks." And also statistically, Dick will say, "Thanks, but I was hoping for something closer to 60,000. Dick does not get 60,000, but not wanting to disappoint, they offer him 55. So right off the bat in this scenario, Jane is making 50,000, Dick is making 55,000. So from this point forward, his earnings will be disproportionately higher than hers, and that will probably last their entire careers. Here's why. All of the raises that either of them get will be based on how much they're making now. Then of course, there will be opportunities for new jobs, and new jobs will probably want to know what his salary expectations are, and those will be based on historically higher salary. So getting yourself set up early in your career is really, really critical. But let's focus just on that gap, that $5,000. It expands quite a bit, especially when you consider contributions to a 401k, for instance. So I did some math on what that $5,000, if we just take the $5,000, so not dealing with the other $50,000, and also assuming that it is just $5,000 extra the entirety of their career. If Dick contributes 3.8% just of that $5,000, and we're going to increase that with a cost of living increase by 3.4%. I'm assuming that the 401k that Dick and Jane are invested in has a return of 7% and has a 50% employer match up to the first 6%, which actually is based on my 401k. This is based on real life examples. So just on that $5,000 and contributing 3.8% of it, starting right after graduation, Dick will have an astonishing $134,000 more in his retirement account at 65 than Jane will. So just thinking about the investment of 3.8% on that $5,000, this is a huge deal. $134,000 is the difference between food on your table when you're 80 and not. So I want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be as happy and healthy and wealthy as Dick is at 65. So I'm also going to be really cautious about the way that I give you advice, because advice about working so hard they can't tell you no, or putting on your game face and demanding more money isn't helpful. So I won't give it. A bit about me. I'm Ashley Quinto Powell. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a revenue generation expert. My current company is called My VA Rocks. It's a virtual assistant business that's been around for 3 years now. It's hard to believe. It's my 7th business, and before that, I was mostly doing sales for high-end software development and consulting firms. So in my career, I've sold over $20 million. I have a programming background. I've negotiated with people on my staff. I've negotiated for people on my staff. I've negotiated for myself. So I've always been kind of a negotiator, and I'm going to teach you all of my tips and tricks. I also gave a TEDx on executive motherhood. You can find that online if you're curious about learning more. And of course, check out my book. But first, let's get you set up for a really, really good salary negotiation. So first of all, I'll say not all jobs are online. This is kind of frustrating because there are a lot of jobs online, and the way that we hire for new virtual assistants is definitely online. There's a question. Just curious, is there a normal merit raise percentage? Those are usually between 3 and 5%. A typical merit raise is between 3 and 5%. So not all jobs are online. Plenty of them are. And actually that makes online job seeking really, really tricky, because mostly people are not aware of the volume of how many jobs there are online and how many applicants. So when I put out something for virtual assistants, we looked through thousands of resumes, and we're doing big hiring. We're hiring 50 people this year, but we will probably search through, and I don't want to exaggerate, but I bet we'll search through 5,000 or 6,000 resumes pretty easily. So whatever you can do to stand out, do it, because you're up against a lot of competition, especially if those jobs are remote. And I'll go into it a little later, but especially if those jobs are earlier career jobs. So the trouble with job boards, I contend, is that ZipRecruiter, Dice, Monster, they all boast perfect candidates. Ideally, though, you're not a perfect candidate. You want to grow into a job, you want to learn more. And very, very often, that's not what the job boards are saying that they have. They say they have people who have done it hundreds of times and for years. And from a job seeker's perspective, I actually don't want the job I have been doing for 5 years to get paid either the same or a little bit more, because I'll get bored. And most people are looking for career growth. And so I want to make sure that that's well aligned. I want to make sure that that's well aligned with an employer's expectation. So the idea that I'm already a perfect candidate really is not great. I'm looking for a challenge. So be very aware of that. And as someone who my team and I look through so many resumes, it can be really, really difficult to give someone a chance because there are so many resumes, and there are some that are just out. They're so overqualified. They're hard to ignore. And so if we're looking at, let's say we've narrowed it down to 10 people, and 3 of those people have wildly impressive credentials, and 3 of them could definitely do it, have the potential to do it, but need someone to have faith in them. We just aren't in a position where we can take a chance as interviewers, for instance. So be very, very careful with that, because it can be really, really discouraging. So what I recommend is using your network to get where you're going. It'll be much more fruitful for you. Okay, so specifically, your career, we have thought about it as a ladder, but it is not a ladder. It's a pyramid. And the reason that it's important to focus on it like a pyramid is because when you first get started, so the bottom of the pyramid is your first job right out of college. They're very easy to find jobs. They tend to be entry level. There are lots and lots and lots of these easy to find jobs. As you get to the top of the pyramid, there are harder to find jobs. This is the C-suite, this is VP of something, this is director level. Those are really hard to find jobs. And part of that is that there are less of them in an organization. There are also many fewer of you. There are many less people who are vying for those director roles, VP roles. So when you're at the bottom of your pyramid, there are very, very many of you and very many of those jobs. So it doesn't take long for you to find one another. But as you get to the top of the pyramid, there are way fewer of you and way fewer jobs. And so it feels like a more difficult process, if only because the time for matching, finding the right person for the right job when there is less of them on both sides, it just takes a little longer. So don't be discouraged there. But I do want you to set yourself up to be in a really good position to negotiate. So don't get discouraged, because it will feel like, especially if you're moving to the top of the pyramid, it will feel like this is taking a really, really, really long time. And it is taking a longer time to find the right fit than it did when you were at the bottom of your pyramid. Don't get frustrated, though. I read this book, Quitter by John Acuff, which I really, really like, but he asked the question, who becomes your boss when you hate your boss so much you quit? And I love this question, because it's not you. You don't become your boss. Your spouse becomes the spouse that wasn't quite on board with you rage quitting becomes your boss, and the person who expects you to pay a rent or a mortgage becomes your boss, or the power company or the cable, all of the bills become your boss. So don't rage quit. This is a picture of Steven Slater. He's really famous for specifically being a rage quitter. So he was a flight attendant, and he had too much one day, and he grabbed a couple of beers off of the beverage cart and then went down the aisle shouting expletives, walked off, popped the door of the plane, pulled the emergency exit slide, and slid down. That's how he quit his job. He has already done the most spectacular rage quitting we can possibly imagine. You're not going to do it better, okay? So just don't rage quit. I don't want you to be in a position where you have to take a job, because you cannot negotiate if you desperately, desperately need a job. So put yourself in a really good situation where you can be very, very confident that you can say no. That's how you put yourself in the best situation for a negotiation, because many times the person on the other side of the negotiating table isn't giving you what you want, not because they're being stubborn, but because they have limits to what they can offer and what they can do, and they have guidance from HR and from the VP level. So they're trying their best to make it work. And if it's not in the cards, you need to be able to walk away so that you don't end up taking something that's not ideal for you. So put yourself in a position where you can negotiate really well. And that is not desperately needing a job. The one time I say you can take a job without negotiating is if you are just concerned with putting food on the table and getting some stability for your family. So if you are concerned about how the rent or the mortgage is going to get paid, take the first job and keep looking, but let's get those bills paid first so that you are not in a blind panic and you can make really good, rational decisions and you can walk away from something that's not right. So the way we're going to get there is thinking about your value proposition. So your value proposition is what you can do for an organization. And sometimes people assume, when I say, why do you want this job? There are a fair amount of people who will say things like, well, I would be really great at working from home. That is definitely the reason you want the job. I'm interested in what you're going to do for my company. So instead of phrasing sort of what's your value proposition, why do you want the job, as I have bills to pay and I'm a really, 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 really good person, think about it from what you can bring to the employer. In my case, I always said I sell between $2.5 and $3.5 million a year. I'm confident that I can sell $2.5 to $3.5 million for you. And that's the way that I am able to say what I expect you to pay me, actually, in the long run, given what I'm going to bring to the table, is not unreasonable. So put yourself in a position, think through your value proposition. What are you going to bring to the company and how are you going to bring value? And that's going to put you in a very, very strong situation. And you can use this formula. So I help people like you solve this problem that you might have by doing what I'm great at. And anytime someone says, tell me a little bit about yourself, this is where in an interview, you can bring in your value proposition and say, I help insurance companies solve the problem that insurance companies have by doing what I'm great at doing, which is helping insurance companies. So use this value proposition formula to really lay out, here is what I'm going to do for the organization. Here's how I'm going to do it. And here's the problem. So the next step of setting up a really, really good negotiation is understanding what your salary number is. And it should be big. It should make you want to barf in your purse a little bit. This is the sign for me that you have hit on a high enough salary that this is the one you actually should be going for. Most people have a very, very hard time articulating this number. And there's lots of things that you can do to get to this number. You can do research. You can go to Glassdoor. You can find similar jobs in similar industries or in similar locales that help you understand what the market rate is. But you should know where you fall and what you can expect, and then don't shy away from that number. It should make you a little nauseous. That's a really good sign that you're in the right place, saying the right thing, and a high enough number. What I want you to avoid, though, is when someone asks, don't phrase it like a range. So many times, to take the sting out of such a high number, people will say, I'd like to make between $55,000 and $75,000, depending on benefits. When you say that, though, you hear, I want to make $75,000. And the person listening hears, I'll take $55,000. So don't phrase it as a range. Phrase it as a single number. So know what it is, make it big enough, base it on research. The good gut check is if it makes you want to barf, Perfect. All right, then say it without flinching. So instead of saying I'd like to make between 55 and 75, depending on benefits, say I'd like to make $75,000. And then just stop. So one of the things to consider is non-monetary wiggle room. So these things will include health insurance, your PTO, your flexibility, and any equity that you're being offered in a company. Depending on where you are in your life, these may or may not be actual benefits that you'll want to include in your total compensation package. For me, the dollar amount has always been the number one most important thing, followed by health insurance. I actually really don't care about PTO because I work quite a lot. And I don't prioritize vacations probably in the way that I should, but don't give me 7 months of PTO because I won't take it. I still want to be able to get my job done, but don't give me subpar health insurance because I have a family and that's something that's really concerning for me. Flexibility might be really, really important to you, but equity may not be. So understand sort of ahead of time which of the components of non-monetary wiggle room really make a difference for you, and then use those in your negotiation. So if you're not taking health insurance, for instance, because you're on a spouse's health insurance plan and it's great and you have no interest in changing doctors, that is an opportunity to say, okay, I am not going to take the insurance. So can you add that to my total compensation package in the salary itself? You're literally asking, instead of paying for my health insurance, can you just take that money that's already allocated in your budget and put it in my salary so that can be actual money in my pocket? I will say you want to get as close as possible to the salary, to an agreed upon salary amount as soon as you can before you bring in the non-monetary stuff. So get as close as you can with the real money, and then to just bridge the last gap in your salary negotiation, but you can be talking about health insurance, PTO, flexibility, equity, and I would add to remote work. One of the ways to do this, if you are more comfortable negotiating by email, just do it that way. Don't be pressured to get on a phone call if that makes you really, really nervous. So if you would rather gather your thoughts and have an email communication, you should 100% push it to email. And the way that you do that is you just keep responding to email and stop responding by phone. And that'll give you an advantage. That's if you feel nervous getting on the phone. I will say it's easy to do it in person if you're comfortable with it, and it's a nice way to sort of knock out the last couple of points. But if that makes you nervous or puts you in a position where you are not operating from a pillar of strength, you don't have to do it. A good rule of thumb is don't accept an offer on the same day. Inevitably, you'll wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, right, I heard Ashley Quinto Powell talking about how I should negotiate my PTO and my health benefits. And so even if it is the single greatest offer to ever have been offered, you still want to wait a day and just sleep on it. You'll have questions. The excitement will have died down a little bit and you can look more rationally, but don't accept an offer on the same day. Another thing you can do is pretend you're negotiating on behalf of your family or your pets. And this seems really silly and it seems kind of kitschy, but actually, women in particular are much more likely to advocate for their children, for instance, or their pets than they are themselves. So if this is something that helps you, 100% pull this in and pretend that you're negotiating on behalf of your family or your pets. And just think about it like they're not paying you $75,000 a year. They're giving your family $75,000 a year so that you can raise them in exchange for the really hard work that you're going to do. And let me tell you, when you talk about taking money away from my babies, I turn pretty mama bear, and I'm sure you do too. Your value is highest before you start. So although it is tempting Don't wait until you're in the organization to ask for a raise. You're not going to wedge your foot in the door, then prove your value, and then have them give you a giant raise after that. First of all, when you start a new job, you turn into an idiot. Everyone has experienced this. In the first 2 weeks, you need hand holding on everything from where is the bathroom to how do I operate the intranet. So nobody is interested in giving that person a raise. Do it before you start. Also, HR will have something to say about the percentage raise that's given out to people who already work there, but a new salary comes from a slightly different HR budget. So HR may cap a raise at 6 or 7%, but if you can negotiate before your first day, it's way different and you have way more potential to get 10 and 15 and 20% more than the first offer. But once you're in there, you're really tied down in a way you aren't always quite expecting. Another hot tip is that you're the only one focused on your shortcomings. And I know from even my own negotiations that as you're talking yourself up in your head and saying like, all right, here's what I deserve, and here's how I'm gonna, here are the things that I am bringing to the table, and you should give me this money. You can also have these sort of insidious thoughts that creep in and say, well, but I don't have the right college education, or I don't have experience in the industry. You're the only one who's focused on those types of things, especially at the end of an interview process. What's actually happened on the other side, on the employer side, is that you're hired, the person who interviewed you, is has gone to their boss and gone to HR and said, Jane is the one I want for this position. Here's why. And the hiring manager has really laid out the reasons that you'll be great in the organization, the reasons that your qualifications are a hit, the reason that you're going to be a wonderful culture fit. And so they sort of sold you. They've sold you to the rest of the organization. They're not saying, well, they don't have enough experience, they don't have the right experience, they don't have the industry experience, but we'll take her anyway. They're saying this is the right person for the job. So get on that page with them. Talk yourself up to yourself, because they're going to be really excited about you in this stage, and you should be too. So don't self-sabotage, because they need your help. Right? They put out this job description and they're hiring because the organization has a gap and usually desperately needs someone very, very qualified to help get them where they're going. So they need your help. They're excited about your help. And you are in a really good position to negotiate. So let me give you some quick, here is exactly how and what you say. One of my favorite salary negotiation phrases is, that's a great offer. What more can you do? You can use this if you are scared to say anything else. If it makes you too nervous, this is perfect. If you've gotten the offer of the century and can't even imagine that someone would add some more onto it, you still say, that's a great offer. What more can you do? You can also start with something like, I was really hoping for something more like X. Can you get close? That's a really, really good collaborative negotiation tactic. If you're curious about whether you can ask for more money at all, a good place to start is, do you have room to negotiate? And they'll tell you usually how much room they have to negotiate. So they'll say something like, yes, we probably have 5 or 10% wiggle room. But if it is going to be a no, usually they will have set up the negotiation so that it is they will have set up the negotiation so that you know what the starting salary is. And if it's really rigid and programmatic, they will have said that typically many, many, many times. A really good place to put yourself in is if you have two offers at the same time. You have to do a lot of hustle to get through two interview processes and have them sort of show up at the same time, but it is very, very possible. But the best thing to say is, I'm looking at two offers side by side. I really want to work with you. Can you beat this other offer? And make it super collaborative and get them on your side and help them understand too that you may have to say no because the other offer is so good. Of course, you want to work with them, and it's helpful to cite the very, very specific reasons that you want to work with them, including I like the work, I like the team, I know I would thrive under your leadership, but I have to do what's best for my family. Can you beat this other offer? And those phrases will put you in a really strong position to get the answers that you're looking for. Again, this is not something that is a magic bullet. And sometimes companies don't have money that you're looking for, but they'll these phrases and these tactics, you'll really put yourself in a position where a company will put together everything that they possibly can and feel really, really good about how you've negotiated and how you're coming onto their team. Um, I'm Ashley Quinto Powell. I'm on LinkedIn a ton. I'm going to move over to questions now. Let me stop screen sharing. It looks like there are lots of good questions in the chat. But before I get there, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm there at Ashley Quinto Powell, or you can check me out at ashleyquintopowell.com. But I love self-advocacy, and I love seeing people make the money that they deserve to be making. So I would love to hear your success stories too. And of course, if I can ever help with a quick, hey, I'm in the middle of a negotiation and I have a quick question, LinkedIn is the perfect place to reach out to me.
Ashley, thank you so much for that. It's rapid fire information, right? And I think it was so handy and so helpful. We are right at time though, so I'm wondering if maybe we can bounce through a couple of these questions. I do see some similarities to some of these. I think Cheryl has a good question that I think it's come up in other conversations that I've had with folks. But what if your company has ceased annual raises? Is that maybe the example that you just shared about the company's going to be kind of forthright if there isn't any negotiation room, or is there something that could be done if the company has ceased to kind of offer annual raises?
Well, you absolutely have to make sure you say something. In the times that I have managed people who've asked me for raises, I've had plenty of people who never ask for a raise, and I don't know to take care of them. And the people who say, this is something I'm really concerned about, or this is something that I'm thinking about, and I need to understand when my next raise is coming, those are usually the ones that I prioritize, not because I like them more and not because they asked any better or because their work is better even, but because I know that I need to take care of them salary wise. So finding a way with your direct leadership to say, this is something that's on my mind. I would love to be kept in the loop. How do I go about making sure that I'm one of the ones who gets the next bump when they go out, is a really, really effective way to make sure that if the organization is going to give any raises, you will be included on the first list.
Love that. Love that. Thank you for that. Next one. So how can I effectively navigate negotiations when HR advises that salary offers are determined based on equity-based formula?
Well, I would ask about what that formula looks like and guidance on how you can effectively get more salary. So if they have the formula, great. That's probably a really transparent way that you can work with the company to make more money. So dig into what that looks like. The best salary negotiators are often having discussions pretty constantly about, here's what I'm doing to get better. Tell me what feedback feedback you have, and what do I need to do to make it to the next level?
Okay. No, I think that's great insight as well. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I know it was rapid fire today, a lot of really good nuggets in there. A couple questions come up about this event. This event is being recorded, will be shared out on our YouTube channel as well. So if you missed it, wanted to go back and rewatch, share it with someone else, you'll be able to do that. We'll be sending that to the link, the email address that you use to register for this event. With that being said, we will go ahead and cap it there. Thank you so much, Ashley, for this. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day, and we will see
Thank
you
you so
all
much for having
next time.
me.
Take care, folks. Bye.